Got a lot of people out. I know Christine sent me a message that she's presenting tonight. That was
Right.
in Wilmington. That was a big honor for her to be able to do that.
Yes, it is. Um, and we have one member of our class whose father passed away,
Oh,
and that's Dana. So we all need to keep
yeah.
her and her family
Thank
in
you
our
for letting me
prayers.
know that. Yes, thank you for letting me know that.
And Tommy um, has to miss because of a family obligation. He could not
Tommy's here.
rearrange. Is
Tommy's
Tommy
here.
here? Tommy, you're here.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That's for April 15th.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I'll talk to you afterwards because they've thrown in two softball games back to back. So it's like the last 2 weeks of class on a
Okay.
Wednesday night for some reason.
All right.
So we'll talk later though. Adam.
All right. So can you see the recording button come on, Dr. Stedman?
It
Okay.
says
Saw it,
recording,
Jessica.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, great. Well, Dr. Stedman, you want to welcome us?
Well, we've already said hello, but hello again to everybody. I know it's a busy, busy time for all of you guys. I know with me, with my Charter Academy, we're going through the third. I call it benchmark testing. We're going through that now, just getting results back from that. So I know y'all are doing the same thing in your schools, or it's time. Around that time, I know you've got some have already had spring break, others are going to have spring break. So there's a lot of moving pieces. I know, like Tommy said, the sports seasons are almost overlapping with each other with things going on. It's just a lot going on. And I cannot believe that we are almost finished with the month of March already this year. It's just the time is going by. But anyway, welcome tonight, and don't let the agenda scare you. We're going to go over some things, but Dr. Revis and I met, and we've got things pretty much planned out. Um, Maybe some minor adjustments, but pretty much planned out for the rest of the semester, so you can kind of know what to expect.
Let's start out looking at assignment 4. Um, I think everybody's turned in their assignment 4 for me, and I've given feedback.
Mine did as well.
And one area that consistently I had to ask for revisions on, and it was probably because my example was not really a strong example. But that is over here on your indicators of success. You're actually, friends, going to turn this action plan into NCPPA in your folio. So you have to make sure that the indicators of success are measurable. So, sometimes when you say like fourth grade teachers and the L teacher will have common planning, well, how do you measure that? Well, sure, you can take roster or check roll at the meetings and keep agendas and that kind of thing. But the big thing is that evidence of lesson plans that 90% of the teachers have incorporated those strategies that they're talking about in their common planning in their classroom. You want to see evidence of implementation of whatever your strategy is. Um, this one has two pieces of evidence. You have lesson plans at 90%, and engagement feedback will increase by 20% for L students. So, what that should say to you is you've got to get a baseline to measure engagement data, and you know how to do that now. Um, Another one, teachers will implement the use of math manipulatives and math models when introducing a new math concept. So, evidence that 90% of the teachers, will use manipulatives in their lesson unit plans. And we're going to measure increase in 8 percentage points on the spring check-ins for our L students.
Dr.
Um,
Evans, can I say something there?
sure.
Uh, when you go back, when it's dealing with the teachers and expectations, folks, I would make sure, I would say 100% of my teachers are going to do this. And you
Right.
hold them accountable. If 90%, the other 10%, are you just going to let them be slack and get by? When it comes to those kinds of things, I would focus on 100% of my teachers will do this.
And I think sometimes we shy away from putting a target because it's just a target. Nobody's going to beat you with a wet noodle if you don't meet it. But there's psychologically, there's so much benefit in putting a target on your indicators. So, here, if this was my next strategy, teachers will implement graphic organizers and foldables during each unit of instruction. Well, what would be evidence of that? Well, you could use walkthrough evidence that you're seeing it consistently and pervasively in walkthroughs with a target number, be it 80%, 90%, 100%. And the reason I go 90%, Dr. Stedman, is because every time you do a walkthrough, you may not see
Right.
a graphic organizer.
Well, and 90% but when it comes to having this in your lesson plans and things that you can check like that, that's what I was referring
Yes,
to.
yes. And and then implement the use of IXL learning as part of
Right.
math instruction block. There, I would put some kind of target goal about improvement in their baseline test scores in IXL.
Right.
I would do some kind of target base scores, baseline scores. But anyway, so for lots of you, it was making sure that these were measurable and they need to be measurable. In assignment 5, you're going to present all of your background data and you're going to present the action plan to 2 groups, your principal and then your focus group. And they may want to tweak some of these. Well, you've
Right.
got to go along with that. But, you're going to present this and you have to get feedback. You must show that you took your plan and you're getting feedback from those 2 groups. So that kind of segues into um, your assignment 5. Your action plan needs to be part of your narrative. So, steps to engage staff to garner support for proposed strategies is your last section, and then you put your action plan, and it is a figure. So, any questions on assignment 4?
And Dr. Evans, I know that this is leading, that we haven't got to assignment 5 yet, but now remember, action plan in 4, that's your proposal.
Hmm.
That's your proposal. Remember, any of that is subject to editing and change when you get to assignment 5.
Exactly. All right. Let's go
I
back.
have, I have a question.
Okay, Kelly. Hey, how are
Um,
you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good. So with the target dates and whatnot, I know on there it says a lot for the third quarter, and I put a lot of that like in mine, but does it have to be because we're going on spring break and EOGs are getting ready to start, and so I know that it's like time crunch. Not to say that it can't be, but
I would put if it's feasible to do it in third quarter, that's what I would put. Because you're in the late spring with 9 weeks probably left of school, a lot of these things would have to be implemented fall of 26.
so I put like start like trying to implement this year, but also starting up next year with the professional development and things like
Yes,
that.
Right.
But
that's
that's okay
perfect.
to do. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I gave it to my focus group today and I could in the principal, and I know some people were like, "Oh, that's soon." So
That's fine.
okay.
Allison?
So I've already done one focus group and they gave me feedback on some things to change for my action plan. Do we go back to assignment 4 and change our action plan, or do we just leave that in assignment 4 and then update it in assignment 5?
You update it in assignment 5, and you
Okay.
have to talk about the changes that you made as a result of that feedback.
Okay.
Assignment
Okay.
5 has a lot of duplication. Let's look at that right now. And I'm going to just scroll down to the helpful hints and let you see the duplication. Um, Reintroduce your priority academic area and target subgroup. Okay, that you've got to do. And then you come to your presentation with school leaders, who was present, what was included, your slide deck, no more than 10 slides. You reference it in your narrative and put it in the appendices here. Have a slide about your quantitative data, qualitative data. You may have 2 slides on quantitative, 2 on qualitative. And then you talk about your summary of your research strategies, your recommended strategies, and then your action plan. So you present that in your slide deck, and then this is the heart of it right here. Then you have to discuss in your narrative what process you use to get the feedback. If I hope it's an open dialogue, but I would suggest going to that presentation with some questions that you form to kind of, you know, put some, put some borders on where you go with this discussion. So your process would be that you met with the administrative team or your principal and you ask these questions, and this is the feedback. The feedback they gave you on the plan strategies, the feedback they gave you on the implementation, that would be your timeline, Kelly, and the feedback on the overall quality and relevance of the plan. You do that for your school leaders, then you do the very same thing for your focus group. Now, I have seen students do a presentation and then give the participants a form to fill out. I guess you can do that, but you've got to show true collaboration. And I think you need to facilitate that discussion. Don't you, Dr. Stedman? So
I
that
do.
it's true collaboration. And as a team, make changes. Okay? Now, you can do your presentation to your focus group first, and then your principal, or whichever way. I would probably suggest, and Dr. Stedman, you weigh in on this, I would probably suggest doing your focus group first and letting your principal have the final say.
I would too, yes. I agree with that.
And you write it up that way.
Unless you've
Then,
already done it. If you've already done it, then work it out. But if you haven't done it yet, do the focus group first.
and then you have a section on analysis and interpretation of feedback. You have to narratively synthesize and summarize. This is a higher order thinking skill. Describe how you synthesize feedback, how you use the suggested revisions, tell specifically what you changed, and describe the revisions in your plan. And then you put your revised action plan using that template you used in assignment 4, the revised action plan. And this is really aligned very closely to what you have to show with NCPPA. They want to see how this plan fits into the school priorities and the district plan. So be sure you talk a little bit about that and show how everything is cohesive. and that's assignment 5. So it's several pieces, and I'm excited that some of you've already done that and started holding your groups. Allison?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have spring break next week, so we were like in a crunch. So I did the principal and MLL district person today. Well,
Good.
yeah, today, and then the focus group will be tomorrow. So,
That's fine.
and we just dialogued. So like that's okay to say like that's how they're giving me the feedback is like during the meeting and
Yeah.
after the presentation. Okay,
Did you
and
take
then
notes? Did you take notes during the
I
presentation?
recorded.
I would
So
say
I
that.
just we met in person, but I turned on my my Google Meet and just recorded it.
Yeah.
Um is it okay to include quotes?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, there was something else I thought of while you were talking, but now I can't remember. Um
And if you want just to make sure it's okay to move forward after you do your focus group tomorrow, run everything back by your principal.
okay. Okay. And
If
now
you
I don't know if this will happen, but like what if there's like different feedback? I mean, is it best to just kind of more so lean towards the feedback from the principal? Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm just kind of thinking out loud a
well, the
little bit.
bottom line, your principal's in charge. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Um, I don't think that will happen. What I would love to see you do is try to bring that group to consensus.
Right.
And you can share if it's okay with the principal what his or her feedback was. This is what she thought and get reactions to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Any other questions on 5? Okay. And again, if you have questions, just, feel free to ask them. And we'll have a time during the end of the session that you can ask the questions again, as well. All right. Now I have lost. I do this sometimes. I lose my documents. Um, we're going to skip the
There it
textbook
is.
activity right now and go on and talk about the rest of the things. And then we'll come back to the textbook activity. The other thing that you have to do, coming on the very heels of your assignment 5,
Okay.
is your peer review for review 2. And so let's look at that checklist. It's a checklist very, very similar to what you did in um, Artifact 1. This is for Artifact 2. I took this from your handbook and I just made a checklist. You have 4 pages up to 2,000 words. Guys, if you go over, you have got to get it down. No ifs, ands, or buts. They won't allow you to turn it in. Or if you do turn it in, you won't be accepted. They won't score it. So it's important. And so I've chunked it up in different sections. Um, anyway, you have everything that you need now to do the peer review 2 for Artifact 2. Um, there's the rubric for Artifact 2 or mostly Artifact 2. And then here's the Massachusetts example. Again, my disclaimer, they may not use the same rubric, the same page number, and word count requirements, but they are very close. So I like to encourage you in your narrative to put some headings in. I think it helps keep you on track, and you can see um, how they've done this, the theory of
Well,
action.
Dr. Revis, it not only keeps you on track, but when it goes to the reviewers through NCPPA, it makes it clear to them that you've got what they're looking for.
Yes. Theory of action 1. Now, we've called them strategies, okay? And there's where you narratively present the strategy and your student outcomes. See how these have to be measurable? Theory of action 2. And this person just did 2. Okay. Uh, you may not be able to go through all of your action steps, but remember, you have got to put in there instructional change strategies. Some of you put things like, in my example, of course, was common planning for the grade level teachers and the L teacher. Okay, that is an organizational strategy. You can put that in there, and it's a priority strategy, but there shouldn't be as much description as to what all that's going to, what it is and what it's going to do. And this person then did a timeline. This is what they're going to do in August, September. Yours would probably start maybe in April, May, maybe not. It may be fall before you will do anything. And you can see how they go all the way through the year. You've got more words and more pages, but they take it through an entire year. And this was the score's remark. Okay. So that, and you need to thoroughly, make sure that you're giving comprehensive, thorough, formative feedback. And the last time you did it, I will have to say, some of the best feedback I've seen. You guys were spot on in your
They were.
feedback.
They were.
Any questions on your feedback?
Yes, I have one question.
Sure.
If we want to go in more detail on the timeline part, can we include that like in an appendices versus in the narrative?
I would put something in the narrative. Okay.
Okay.
You make it in and reference a more expanded kind of version um in your documents. Um, but I would definitely address it. I would definitely address it.
Yes, and Dr. Evans, would it not be okay, based on what Brooklyn was saying, to talk about it and just to say, see Appendix A for more for more
Mhm.
details,
Right.
or something like that. That's what
Let's
you
look
asked
at
and what
let's look at those
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
categories documents. Now, somewhere I read, if I didn't dream this, okay, somewhere I read that reviewers may or may not look at the category documents. That's why I said what I did, Brooklyn. Okay. Um, if they have a question, they're going to definitely look. So in the category 2, that's what you put. So that kind of thing would not go there. Um, your school and district priorities have to be listed before you turn in your whole task. Um, surveys and interview guides, data collection forms. So that's what I'm saying. Um, when you are holding these focus groups, it would be good to have an interview guide or a focus group guide. Now you've got questions that you can put in there. Remember when you collected qualitative data, we wrote your questions. And so you'll put those in there. And um, category 5 forms. Again, if you used anything to collect feedback, um, that would be good. Okay. So you need to build this as comprehensively as you can, um, on what you've done thus far. And once you build this and get a good artifact 2, artifact 3 is not going to be very difficult for you. We'll do it very quickly. I think it's putting it all together that gives people a little bit of angst. All right. Let's go back now and look at your week requirements. I'll talk about the reading, what your next steps are in your reading assignment. I'll talk about that at the end of our group work tonight. Assignment 5, April 5th. Assignment the peer review 2 is due April 9th. So you don't have a lot of time. Assignment 6, we will look at next week. Don't worry about 6 right now. Then you have to put things together for task string for Gardner Webb. We'll talk about that. Introduce it in week 12. Then you've got an Artifact 3 peer review checklist. We will introduce that in week 12. It's due on April 19th. Your final peer review checklist, and that's where you're checking documents by category, confidentiality, and anonymity, and your commentary. That will be introduced week 13, but it will be due on the 23rd. So you will have everything finished for both Gardner Webb and for NCPPA by Thursday the 23rd. But notice that some deadlines now are not just Sunday evening. You have some things due on Sunday, some things due on Thursday. But then we will schedule a time with you individually between April 26th and 28th to do a readiness check. You pull up your artifact. We look at word count and page numbers and the format, and that's all we can look at. It's a quick, okay, you got it, move on. And we will do that individually with you. And you have to submit this Artifact 1 or Task 1 by April 30th. So our last class is going to be, did we assign on that, Dr. Stedman? Our last class is going to be on probably the 22nd, I think. We may meet on, yeah, the 22nd. But you've got a lot to do. Melanie?
So my peer review group, we were a little bit confused about the category documents. And I just kind of want to make sure, I think it's becoming clearer, but, so we're just kind of creating like a place to hold all of those things, and they go with all the artifacts. So it's not
Correct.
like we're creating new category documents
Correct.
for Artifact 2. It's all going to be together.
Yeah, think
Correct.
of it kind of like as an appendices.
Okay.
Okay.
Or like folders. Like I'm a paper pencil gal, so I'm picturing file folders. But
Well, you're going to have to do electronic. I'm sorry. But now listen to this. You have to reference it in that narrative. Okay.
okay.
So, find you some kind of numbering system because the category documents, there are 5 categories. And so you'll have to find you some kind of naming convention. Category 1, see category 1 document A or 2 or 3 or no either do you'll have to say which category they can find it in and the label of the document if it's you to go A, B, C, D or 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Thank you.
And sometimes you may think, well, gosh, this could go in this category and this one. Just pick one. Allison?
I do have a question, but maybe this will help somebody. So for Artifact 1, what I did was I made like a new Word document and I labeled it Category 1 Documents. And then like if I had like a chart or something, I called it Category 1.1. And then if I had like another something, another set of questions or whatever, I labeled it like category 1.2. So they're all in the same document, but I labeled them so that, and then referred them back in that artifact one, if that makes sense, if that helps anybody.
Um, let me go back to this right quick.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back down here. Okay. I think I'm going to go back and research this for you. I think, now, I didn't label category one documents here because you've already done that. I think like category two documents, the documents have to be separate files, I think. Okay.
Oh,
I think.
because
Dr. Stedman, do you remember?
I was looking at the chart in the handbook and it
Okay.
said 5 separate files. So
Okay.
like if
One
I
for
put,
each category. Okay.
yeah, that's the way I was interpreting it. So like in
That's
artifact one in that letter, I had like, okay, refer to 1.1, it's
okay.
this chart, but I put it all in the same. I started off doing it separate.
Yeah.
Like I had category 1.1 in one file, category 1.2 in a separate file, but then I went back and looked at that evidence chart, I think it was in the handbook. Again, I could be totally wrong.
No, I think you're
That was
right. I
my
think that's the way we had them
interpretation.
do it last semester. It says
That was my interpretation.
separate files for each of these 5 file categories. So you are correct, Allison.
Okay.
So you'll have a file for each category document.
Yeah, that again, and that's what I did. And that would have eventually been a question that I had, but um quick question about the because I see all these due dates for everything, but what about the internship log? When does that due?
We have
Because I'm
not
trying to make like a
we have not decided on that yet,
okay, and
but
okay, that's fine.
um I'm thinking we will let you go as long as we can. I'm thinking that we will probably um I don't think we can let you go all the way to the 23rd. Well, we probably could. We'll let you go as long as we can. Okay? Because some people may need that time to do more hours. Now, um, don't forget when you were doing these assignments for your textbook, that can count as clinical work. Okay? Tommy,
Yeah, my question was along that line about the internship hours. So same thing continues. Anything we do other than actually writing the paper, we can count. Okay.
exactly.
All right. Just wanted to make sure.
Exactly. Anything else? It's a lot, but I think it'll go very quickly for you because you've got a lot of this stuff already. The only thing new is assignment 6, and it's more of a reflection of your leadership practices. And I think it's one of your easier assignments. You don't so but it's still an assignment, and I know it takes time. I don't want to diminish it, but okay. All right. So everybody okay on your assignments for the rest of the semester? A lot. And I know it's a lot. So I'm going to stop share and find my PowerPoint. And let's take a turn in our did it come up, guys? Okay. So for this week, you had to pick a data collection tool depending on the level of learning you're assessing. And those were found on pages 152, top of page 153, and either use it in your classroom or partner with a teacher to design and use it in her classroom. And that was mostly for people who don't have a regularly assigned class. And so this is so powerful, I think. When I look at this, had I known this when I was in the classroom, I would have always been using brief constructed responses on probably 90% of my assessments, whether it be exit tickets or, whatever. Now, why do I say that? Well, because it hits all levels of learning. And remember, brief constructed responses is where they're having to do writing. Writing in itself is a higher order thinking skill. So they have to be able to convey their thoughts and responses in written fashion. Now, as a teacher, that's a little more difficult for me to grade, takes more time. But I would think if I did an exit ticket, I would want to have maybe a couple of quick selected responses, but I always want to have a constructed response on my exit ticket. So, with that said, you could select any combination of these. And so, here's what we're going to do when we get into groups in your breakout room. I want everybody to, well, first of all, select a facilitator. Everybody needs to turn at facilitating. And if you've not facilitated, you speak up and facilitate. And I want you to talk about everybody to share the level of learning you intended to assess. See, I propose, this is a good dissertation topic. I propose that teachers don't always match their assessments to the level of learning that they intend to assess. And that's step number one. Then share the type of assessment you use, share the tool and data collection, and reflect with your group on what went well and what could be improved upon. So take yourself a snapshot of this. I'm going to try my best when you get into breakout groups to share this with you, but I don't know if I can. I know there's a way, but I don't know if I can. Now, when we come back out of breakout groups, I'm just going to randomly ask some of you to give me your takeaways from this assignment. What did you learn as a leader in your school? Remember, put on your leadership hat. What did you learn from this assignment? Okay, everybody, any questions on the assignment? I'm going to give you about 20 minutes and put you in groups of 4, I think. And so everybody should have about 5 minutes to share. And don't forget, reflect on what went well and what you would do differently if you were in charge in that school. Remember that you have to be an instructional leader, so you have to spend time in classrooms. And you need to be spending time gathering data in classrooms, not just walking through. All right, let me stop share. And we'll have 4 breakout rooms. It should be sending you shortly.
MLL teacher in the room, so that I've been working with them pretty closely. And so I met with them, and we took the whiteboard check for understanding idea and married it with the turn and talk. And then we created a kind of like a part one, part two, kind of like checklist. And anyway, I can share it later, but so when I went into the classroom today, it went so well. But I think it's because we pre-planned what we were gonna do. I don't know that if I had just walked in and done it, that it would have gone the same, because we had already discussed like what we were gonna do, kind of based on like what I wanted to get out of it, but also what they wanted to get out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So my concern is that like in the future, when I'm actually like doing these as admin, like how that's going to look, because I won't always be able to pre-plan with the teachers. If
You
that makes
won't
sense.
always be able to pre-plan, but me as being an instructional coach, that is some of the pre-work they have to come to PLCs with. And then that's a discussion that we have. And then I give them, every time I give them a look for. So my look for, when I come into your classroom, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for how you're checking for understanding, whether you're using exit tickets, whether you're using whiteboards, whether you're using like the academic checklist, like I said, scoring 2 or 3. And then that way you determine what students have it. The only thing with turn-in talks, I like turn-in talks, but are you actively is the teacher actively listening to every conversation to be able to pull what students got it and what students don't? But I am big on small groups, so that's a lot of my look fors going in. And I am also big on less talking and more like the students teaching back, and then what you get in small groups. Because I have one teacher, she struggles, and it's like 45 minutes for reading. By that 20 minutes, you've already lost them after that. So that's when it's more like condensing. So giving those look fors, and if you have that instructional coach as the admin part, I go to my principal and I say, hey, these are my look fors for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You can come in and observe based off that. So based off what's in PLC, based off what we modeled in PLC, what I told them to look for and strategies implemented.
But Allison, that was very perceptive that you figured out I better have a kind of a collaborative meeting with these folks before I just take a tool off the shelf and, you know.
Right, because I just felt, because there was so many things in that chapter that I could have gone with, that I was like, I don't want to just assume that, because what if I had chosen something and walked in and then completely not
Exactly.
seen what I was looking for? So,
Exactly.
yeah.
But Dana, I love the way that you're using your PLCs. And I think it's criminal to go into a teacher's classroom and they don't know what you're looking for. I think it's criminal. That's a got you. You're setting them up for a got you, and they will not trust you.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think we have transparency. Everybody knows what you're looking for and what it looks like if you're doing it. Kind of thing. I'm sorry. I'm going to leave you
No.
alone. Good discussion.
No, you're good. Now, what you did bring.
And then what went well and what doesn't go well. Planning out a lesson and it just not going to the end to me. Like, you can plan out what seems like the perfect lesson, even incorporate those assessments, but if they're not, it just doesn't perform well then.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens.
It does. We've all planned those lessons that didn't go well.
Yes.
That's all.
I like the cons that you were talking about, Whitney, about not being able to get to everyone. I've noticed that some of my shy kids do not say anything. So I've recently made a little jar where I put everybody's name on them and I pull a name for each time. So by the end of the lesson, I talk to everyone. And if they don't know, at least we talk about why they don't know. Or sometimes I give them the answer and say this, and then tell them why, and then I get them to repeat it back to me.
Yeah, it's just like going in that classroom, like if you're walking through, like part of my job as an instructional coach is to see teachers.
Mhm.
And when I go in and I don't get to see something that I'm looking for, but it could just be the time that I went in, and it doesn't mean that that's not a good teacher or that teacher is not doing what's expected. So it's same with our students.
Yeah.
Yep. Have you guys ever used Pink Cat Studio?
Now tell us about it.
No.
I haven't.
So you have to pay for like, I think it's like $20 for like a year, but students can check in. It's a random student picker. So like if you're trying to make or to hold all kids accountable, it's a great way to just like click your mouse and be like, oh, so and so, like what did what did you get out of this? And it goes through every kid until you restart it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I teach 4K and we use it to check in so that they can recognize their names. We use like a random student picker. But it has been an amazing tool for 4K to use. And I don't know if older grades or even as a coach, like just putting random student names in there. And that way, because like I feel like I'm guilty of like, oh, I know this kid knows the answer and she's constantly raising her hand, but I want to include all of the kids. And like you can do the tongue depressors or whatever, but I'm trying to be a little more tech savvy.
Yeah. I get it.
I also use, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say it's been great.
To piggyback on what you're talking about, Jessica, I use Classroom Screen, and there's a component within that you can make a random selection. It'll make groups, and it will do the same thing you were saying as well.
Do you have to pay for that?
There is a free version.
Their, strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
Did you say what age level? I'm sorry. I'm distracted by this baseball game.
Elementary,
Okay.
K through 5. But that group was
What is that,
fourth grade.
MVPA? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yes, that group was fourth grade. It's a benchmark, middle of year test to see like where they are with their power standards
Okay.
for the middle of the year. So it includes standards from Q1 and Q2 and some of Q3 because we're not finished with Q3. And it'll just kind of tie all those standards. So it consists of 40 questions and you can just see like where the students are. And like I was showing with you, that red, that's our focus area. We want to target right there. Everybody that's red, you pull them, you make your groups as you see those, students' names and work with them towards mastery. So the next time they'll take this test would be sometime in May. I don't have a date, but they're going to take it again and you should see a difference. You will see a difference. You want to make sure that those are in green stay in the green, right? But also those in the red, you should see a change.
Okay. Do they go like with their same teacher? Do you guys like change? Do they change groupings so that, like somebody else is working with them on that standard, or how does that work?
They do. They change. They change the teachers. They change teacher assistants. They figure out whose strength. Maybe someone's strength is multiplication, someone's is division, or OA3 multi-step problems, and we'll just correlate and shift and make groups from within the teachers on a grade level. Then they have like myself coming in, the assistant principal, the principal intern. So we all have a role. So we actually got.
So guys, let me butt in
with it.
I've enjoyed listening to your conversation. Did you guys get together, or those of you who did it with somebody else, and Tasha, you probably did because you're an instructional coach, but if you went into somebody else's classroom, did you have any conversations up front about what tool you were going to use and that kind of thing? Melanie, share.
Yeah, sorry, I went first, but I was just sharing with the group that this class has coincided beautifully with our district's push for DDI PLCs. So we have started and really gotten in our groove kind of at the same time that I started this class, which has been
that's cool.
a little gift from God. But
Good to see things connect, right?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I used a first grade assessment as an example, and we unpacked a first grade standard. Our curriculum doesn't have very good assessment, so we unwrapped a first grade standard, talked about the level of rigor. So we didn't use those same terms that the book uses, but similar. And we then we use iReady as our diagnostic assessment. So we looked at the iReady lessons and how iReady poses the questions. And then we created our own, I can share it. I can pop it back up here. We created our own assessment based on that together as a team. And then we gave it to the kids and then came back and talked about how they did on it. And we talked about things we might want to change. So a lot of these early ones are knowledge based, but and skill based. But then we did have several that required them to write. So they kind of got more into the big ideas, but we realized that for first graders, that was a little too much writing. And it just took them too long to take the assessment. So we made those notes for next year to kind of change those to multiple choice and just have a couple at the end that were the high level that required writing and putting pieces together. But I was just sharing with the group, all in all, it's been a really great experience for our teams who were resistant to assessing kids like this because they're so little and we love them and we don't want to make them uncomfortable.
I used to get this, Melanie. I just know. I just know as a
yes.
teacher.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Right.
So
exactly.
That's good news.
Yeah. So they're coming around.
Good. I'm going to pop in the last room.
When I heard Dr. Rivers say that we can count that our textbook.
I know, I got excited
I
too.
wrote that down so fast. I'm like,
Let me tell
yes,
you
this
something.
is
That's
clinical hours.
I'm gonna have to.
It's just
I got here just in time.
We're collaborators.
Danielle.
You got here just in time, Dr. Rivers. We're not talking bad about you.
That was a good comment. I'm glad I came.
We were excited about that.
You only had 3, so have you all finished sharing your information?
We have.
So
yes, ma'am, for the most part, yes.
So let me ask you this: before, if you did this in somebody else's classroom, did you sit down with them and talk about this is the tool? Did you discuss collaboratively, come up with a tool, or how did you have that conversation before you went into the classroom?
Well, Dr. Rivers, I actually use my classroom as a whole, as I was explaining to Danielle and Amanda. And what mine's basically look like is a review, a backtrack, because we're getting ready for EOGs. And because I do teach students with autism, and they still have to take the EOGs because we are standard course of study, I used what I've already taught and did like a plus delta data sheet, sheet, just to see if they understood prior knowledge of what was already taught. So I kind of use my own classroom to collect the data.
That's fine. Amanda, what about you?
I did my own math lesson, so I thought about, what did I want to end up with? What was the end product? So I had them do, I did checks for understanding, and we were doing decimals, fractions. So I had them connecting the unit form to the fraction to the decimal, and we did like a matching game in partners. And then I used the exit ticket for the constructive response and had them answer the question of how are tenths and hundredths similar. So that's what I did, because I thought, well, what was most important? What did I want to get out of it?
What's the big thing? Yeah. Danielle, what about you?
Well, Dr. Rivers, I'm in a unique situation. So I'm temporarily teaching a 3rd grade math group of 16 students. So I used a check for understanding, and I did the iExcel group jam, which allows them kind of like clickers, if you think of it. It's an electronic check for understanding. So iExcel collects the data itself, But the neat thing about it is, and that's what I discussed with Amanda and Ravonda, these checks reveal all the misunderstandings and misconceptions of teaching that students have, and you're just not so sure because sometimes they can hide. But with the IXL Group Jam, they're individually clicking their answer and it pops up on the board. And then as the teacher, I can choose either to call it out or leave it anonymous. And since our group has developed a community that's safe enough, I called them by name. And I said, so-and-so and so-and-so, you missed this problem. And let's talk about why. It's not to embarrass you, but it's to get a deeper understanding so that you're not confused. And we had a really good conversation from that. And then I allow other students, to give the justification as to why the answers are what they are.
You know what, Danielle?
Like a peer teach.
Error analysis. I can't take off my curriculum hat.
Right.
Error analysis is one of those exercise strategies, and that's what you're doing.
And Amanda had the question of, if as an admin, because we got the admin hat on too.
Yeah.
If we're going into the room as admin, and can we literally use the chart from 152 to observe a teacher? And me personally, I think that chart is a good starting point, but I would want to know exactly what that teacher was doing. Was it an electronic? Was it a thumbs up, thumbs down? Were they going to four corners? Were they using a whiteboard? Were they using the exit ticket? How was it being used? When the misconception was there, what happened next? Those are my questions. Because Amanda had the question, this is a neat little chart with the knowledge, skill, and big idea. And we talked about how she used that exit ticket. That's automatically higher order thinking. So we're moving into skill and big ideas.
Right. Well, and I think too, and we've got to close out here in just a sec. I think if it were in my school, I would be having PLCs, right? Grade level PLCs in an elementary school.
Right.
And I would have my instructional coach in the PLC meetings during the week. We're going to talk about what are our look fors.
Right.
Okay. And here's my look fors. How are you going to assess the students on that? How am I assessing you on that? And it's kind of like a common understanding of when I come into your room this week, this is what I'm going to use in my walkthrough.
Okay.
And it may be different by grade level, then that's fine. Because as a principal, you can't just depend on the instructional coach to do those PLCs. You have to show up some. You have to show up some. And you have to be an instructional leader, which means engaging yourself in their work. And so I think it's criminal to go into a classroom teacher's room and them not know what your purpose is. That's not fair. That's a gotcha. That's setting up an atmosphere of mistrust that I'm only coming in to do a gotcha. I'm coming in to give you feedback to grow you as a teacher. That's my main purpose. But you have to have that trust. You have to have that trust. Guys, I'm going to pop us out, okay?
Okay.
Good discussion. We're almost all back. Just a couple more. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I really enjoy getting to hear some of your conversation. And what I have learned is you guys are sharing a lot of good techniques in these breakout groups. So good for you. And you're just thirsty for it. And it's just so energizing to see you guys talk with such passion about teaching and learning. Guys, here's one thing I want to tell you. Don't ever forget what it's like to be a teacher, ever. And secondly, your focus has to be instruction. If you will focus on strong instruction by being in those classrooms, being in those PLCs, being able to talk the talk. If you're a high school and that's your background and you go to be an elementary principal, guess what? You better learn how to teach reading or what it's supposed to look like very quickly, because that's at the heart of what we do in elementary school, right? And you better get somebody to help you get up to speed on things, because you have to talk the talk. Not to be the expert, but you have to know enough to ask questions. You have to know enough to give feedback, because your number one job is to grow those teachers in your building. That every teacher comes up to the level of your best teacher you've got in that building. So, who wants to share your takeaways from this assignment from a leadership perspective? Okay? Just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Brooklyn? You're muted, Brooklyn.
Yes, I would love to share. This assignment, first off, the number 4, reflect on what we did. It actually encouraged me looking into the assignment with my students, because it allowed me to raise the bar and allow the students to just flourish as like a little flower. I mean, it's amazing what they did. But I ended up using several different of the assessments. I tend to stay at the knowledge level and then use a little bit of skill. I teach the occupational course of study, special ed track, and I give a prompt that's related to daily living every day with some recall questions, and to assess their level of knowledge. And from that, they answer like 10 questions, and then they take that and do a quick content assessment for a short answer, which is handwritten. And then after that, they actually go to their writing journal and write on the same topic. And the topic the last 2 days has been listening skills for job-related skills. Why is it good to be a good listener when on the job? And
So
some
Brooklyn,
of my students.
let me ask you this, Brooklyn.
Yes.
What, as a principal, would you want to see in classrooms? Would you want to see your teachers at the end of every lesson using some kind of assessment so they understand, or during the lesson, one of these assessments?
Yeah, at the end of the lesson, I did an interview form.
Okay.
I did 2 different things. I did a rubric for them to check, self-correct some of their sentences and sentence structures, each other, peer, and then they turn it in for each other. And then I did some interview questions. And with the interview questions, I was able to get through like 4 of the students. There's 9 in that classroom. And I told the other 5 or 6 to, remain quiet, and I need everybody else that I didn't get to answer this question. And students who normally don't talk and speak up, they were raising their hand. So they were very active in it. And some cons we discussed in our group was it's hard to always get all the students involved, especially like one of our was a lower level, and they did 4 corners to assess through a game, through an assessment. And it's just hard to assess all students. So, and we made a point to say, just because someone's quiet doesn't mean that they don't know what's going on. And,
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, that's just, their personality. And
that may be the one student you need to talk to and interview.
Right. And that's what I did in my interviews. I pulled some of the different levels, and two strategies that we actually came out and spoke about. One of our members said the pink cat.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Station, I think. And then I use Classroom Screen, and that's a very good. It's free. Classroom Screen's free. You have to upload it every day, but I use it daily in my instruction. So, but yeah, so
thank you.
Hopefully I answered everything.
Melanie, thank you for sharing, Brooklyn. Melanie?
I was just going to share quickly in our group. I appreciated everybody's contribution to the group, but Tasha shared a really gorgeous spreadsheet that had conditional formatting on it, and I just love those. But I thought what she said was really powerful, that you can go in a classroom and you can be there to look for one thing, like achievement data. But through that achievement data, and Tommy also mentioned this, you can see engagement, and you can, so even though you're in there for one purpose, you can be in a room for 20 minutes and see a whole lot of data very quickly.
It's amazing how much you can see, isn't it? Anybody else want to share? Okay, so next week we're going to be in chapter 7. And this is about teaching. We're rolling our sleeves up and getting to the heart of things. I only want you to read about interaction data collection, and that's on pages 159 to 170. Here, I'm going to force you this time to work with a teacher, okay? Because you're going to have to do this in NCPPA Test 2 and 3. I want you to have a pre-data collection meeting to collaboratively decide what type of interaction data to collect. And then collect the data, and then have a post-collection debriefing meeting to share the data. So I'm going to force you to have a pre-data collection meeting, data collection in another teacher's classroom, and a post. Okay? Any questions about that? We're going to break chapter 7 up, and so that's why we're only looking at the pages 159 to 170. Allison?
We're on spring break next week, so I don't know that I'll be able to accomplish this.
If you're on spring break, then you can just bring this back and turn it in to me the following week. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
But I want you to read it and be able to engage in conversation when we do a breakout group. Be thinking about what you want to do, maybe. Okay? You can't do it if nobody's there, right?
And Dr. Revis, I think this assignment kind of goes head to head with what my group and myself was talking about going in the teachers, being able to keep that trust and build that trust ahead of being able to build that trust. Because that's kind of what we challenged. We end up challenging the chart that was on 152, because we really wanted to know, like, we don't want to blindside them. We want to be able to let them know what we're actually looking for. So this is.
Yeah. I said to a couple groups, I think it's criminal to go into teacher's classroom and them not know what you're looking for. I just think it builds mistrust. And, your number one job as a principal, your number one, well, of course, school safety, that goes without saying, but we are a learning institution. So your number one job is to help those teachers be the best they can be. And you can't do that sitting in the office. You can't do that just doing lunch duty and car rider duty. You have to be in classrooms. You have to engage in your PLCs and be active in the instruction. And I'll say that, and what will happen is this, I promise you. And if you worked in different schools under different principals, you know this. Where a principal spends her time or his time is what everybody assumes is the principal's priority. If you spend your time in classrooms, they will very quickly, your teachers will very quickly understand that's your priority. And if you've got strong instruction going on, it diminishes a lot of misbehavior and all this other stuff that can eat your time up as an administrator. You got to build that instructional capacity of every teacher in your building. So I'm going to stop share. I enjoy getting to pop in with you tonight on your groups and listen. Very good discussions. I'm so proud of you guys because you're just doing very thoughtful, methodical work, and you are going to be very successful administrators, and your time will come, some quicker than others. But you are just really working hard to get to that level. Okay, I'm done. If you're ready to log off, you can. If you've got any questions about anything we did tonight and want to stay later, I will stay later for you. If you're on spring break next week, have a great spring break. But don't forget to come to class, okay? Bye.
You too.
Dr. Revis, speaking of class next week, I will miss class next week. It's my son's 16th birthday.
Oh, wow. That's a biggie.
It is a big one.
Yeah. You don't look old enough to have a 16-year-old, but that's awesome. So just watch.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, Hey, Tommy, how are you?
Good. How about you?
Hey, Melanie, shoot me an email like on Tuesday to remind me, okay?
Okay. I'll make a note.
Okay.
Sure. Bye.
Bye. All right, go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, just two quick questions. Well, so the example we saw earlier, Artifact 2, the example you had a timeline for the entire year. Is that what they're looking for, or is that's just what that person chose to do?
I think what they're looking for in NCPPA, they're looking for this to take some time.
Okay.
Okay.
So you need to kind of demonstrate that somehow.
Yeah.
It's not just like
yeah, because you couldn't do all this in that much time. So they're looking for it to be a continuous, ongoing thing. And in fact, I think one of the rubrics says something about demonstrates that, this is not going to stop when you no longer in the class or something like that. So you want to show it continuing.
Right. But we don't need to do like, this is March, this is April, as long as we demonstrate that in the
right
document that it's ongoing. Yeah. Okay.
I like to think in terms of semesters, like beginning a fall semester, or even, mid-fall semester, you want to be able to do this and so on and so forth.
Right. Okay. And then last one on the personal thing, like I said, I signed up to coach my daughter's softball, and now we've had a game canceled, and they rescheduled that for April 15th because I told them that from the beginning I can't do it because I have class on Wednesday, and they said that they would schedule all my games for on Wednesday. Well, that one got rescheduled for the 15th, which is our next to last class.
Right.
And then we already had a game scheduled for the 22nd, which was the only one we had, which is our last class.
Well, Tommy, don't worry about. I mean, I worry about you missing class just because you're such a good contributor. And I enjoy working with you. But you always do your work and you can look at the recordings and you can catch right up. Okay?
I just feel bad because it's the last two.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I was worried. So
Don't worry about, from my perspective, as long as you get the work done. Now, what ticks me off a little bit is to say, well, I'm gonna miss class, but I will call you if I need help. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay.
Right.
But if I know you well enough now to know you're gonna dig it out on your own, and if you don't, if you really need help, then of course you can call me. But
Right.
I have
Okay.
people that want to start missing class second class of the semester and think I'm going to do a private class with them, and I'm not. But you
Well, I'm
understand where
trying
I'm
to,
going with that.
yeah,
But
my
you're going to be
wife said she
fine.
would, right. My wife said she would coach those games if I needed her to, but she almost got kicked out of the first one for blowing it
Only
dry or
if you
something.
feel the need. It's not going to hurt you great. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, you have a good week.
You too. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.